Tēnā koutou katoa, ko kakapuka te maunga, ko waipa te awa, ko Ngāti Maniapoto te iwi, ko Ngāti Pākehā tōku iwi no Waitomo ahau. Kia ora Renata and Jeff Mutamihi. Good morning, it is a pleasure to be here addressing you. Like many of you, I wear many hats, and while I'm going to be speaking about some of those roles, I'm not here representing any one of those particular organisations. I grew up in Waitomo, in the Waitomo Caves village. After qualifying as a lawyer at Auckland University and working for a couple of years, I went overseas and worked overseas for over 25 years before I returned to New Zealand in 2010. When I reflect on my career to date, I've been involved, I realise, in alternative investments and alternative finance for over 33 years. First as a lawyer, then as an investment banker, and today as an investor and a director. When I was asked to speak to you today, I was given a very broad brief, but one thing that came out very strongly through the conversations was sustainability, something I've become increasingly passionate about throughout my career. There are three key pillars to sustainability: economic, social and environmental. And the challenge for all of us is to incorporate the principles of sustainability into all of our investment decisions and see those decisions not as trade-offs between profit and the principles of sustainability, but to see that our decisions can be both profitable and productive and have a positive environmental, social and economic impact. Now, this is not a challenge I have any easy solutions for. Alternative investment and alternative finance are not new concepts. The simplest classification is as investments other than publicly traded stocks and bonds. However, it's often seen as meaning investments that provide greater risk, greater complexity. But to me, the label doesn't necessarily mean complexity. Often an asset class is labelled as alternative when it's first established, but once it becomes more understood, more readily traded, there's more liquidity in the asset class, it becomes less of an alternative, even if it strictly meets the definitions. I believe the asset classes that are considered alternative investments today have changed and matured and broadened considerably. And I believe that part of what has made that change is a change in the purpose and the motivation, both of the people who are investing in those asset classes and the people who are developing them. The purpose of what I call traditional alternative investments was almost exclusively economic, perhaps not always finance first, but certainly economic first. That was certainly my experience when I first got involved in alternative investments. My first exposure to alternative investments was as a junior lawyer in San Francisco, working on real estate private placements, multi-property company financings that were arranged by investment bankers, and the investors were banks and insurance companies, investors who were looking for alternatives to the public markets. From real estate private placements, I moved on to senior subordinated mortgage deals, early mortgage securitizations. Next up as an investment banker were distressed mortgage loans in the wake of the meltdown of the savings and loans industry in the United States. And from distressed debt, I moved into securitization, mainly commercial mortgage-backed securities, but I also had exposure to a variety of other types of securitization, as any stream of cash flow that was sufficiently predictable was used to back structured products. All of these investments and the investors who invested in them were looking for alternative sources of financial return. Financial return was the driving motivator. Today, as a director, I hold a number of roles in different companies and sectors, some of which are directly related to investment, and while return is still a primary motivator, there are other factors being considered as well. The range of alternative investments and the amount of money that is invested in them has increased considerably. The asset classes that are classified as alternative investments today have also changed, a fact that is demonstrated by the range of investments that are going to be discussed here today. There are a number of reasons for this, and one of the reasons I believe is the broadening of the purpose of alternative investments beyond profit. Alternative investments have changed and developed as the challenges for the economy and the planet have magnified. The challenges for those creating alternative investments today is the challenge for all investment, the challenge for all business in the 21st century. That challenge is sustainability. So what does this mean for the economy? There are three key pillars of sustainability, and it's probably quite economic, social and environmental, and they've been fleshed out, and I've been told to push the green button, which is quite apt. And there we have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that have been adopted by the United Nations, goals that are focused on our economy, our society and our environment. Now, the economist Craig Raworth was in New Zealand in the past week. Many of you may have heard her speak. And she uses the term donut economics to describe a model for sustainable economics in the 21st century. A model of a circular economy, one that has both planet and people at its core. In the central circle of the donut are the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The area in the very centre is where people are missing out on basic human needs. The rings around the goals show the safe place for humans and the planet. And beyond the rings are the area where we are pushing the planet beyond sustainability. So the essence of the donut, as she describes it, is a social foundation of well-being that no one should fall below and an ecological ceiling of planetary pressure that we should not go beyond, a picture that we all aspire to. There are a growing number of traditional investment products that are applying sustainability measures such as ESG screens and producing returns as good, if not better, than those that are not. The impetus for this change has come from investors, governments and from the investment professionals like yourselves. There are alternative investments that have existed for some time that stress economic sustainability, such as microfinance and other forms of impact investing. In the beginning, impact investing was focused on the economic development of people, but increasingly this is being broadened to include the environment as the impact of the degradation of the planet on people is being better understood. Another example of an alternative investment asset class being discussed today that I am involved in that has as its purpose profit, beyond profit, is angel investing, investing in early stage companies. An asset class that has grown considerably in New Zealand in the last 10 years. In 2007, only $30 million was invested in early stage companies by angel investors, while in 2018, approximately $110 million was invested. The motivations of angel investors vary. Deborah Hall, who is speaking on the angel investment panel shortly, has conducted a number of surveys into angel investing in New Zealand. I'm indebted to the work she has done on the angel investment community. Her surveys have consistently shown that profit is not the only motivation for angel investors. This slide is taken from her 2017 presentation, but the surveys in other years have produced consistent results. Profit is an important motive, but so is giving back, growing business and supporting founders, and staying involved, networking with others interested in the space, and keeping up to date with new developments. I am an angel investor. I am the chair of Archangels, an angel investment group that is focused on supporting women entrepreneurs. And I'm also a member of Ice Angels. While I do want to make money, I certainly do not view angel investing as philanthropy. Equal and sometimes more important are the non-financial rewards. Helping grow New Zealand Inc., supporting young entrepreneurs with a vision and a passion, and being a part of creating something that will make a difference to New Zealand and the world beyond. My angel investment experience highlights the importance of taking a portfolio approach to investment. My first angel investment was in a company called Light Night. It made light strips that added to high-vis vests made people significantly more visible at night. The increased safety aspect appealed to me. Unfortunately, Light Night didn't make it. However, taking a portfolio approach and believing in diversification, I invest in a number of angel funds with varied portfolios. Through one of those funds, I'm invested in Crimson Consulting, a company that was started in New Zealand to help students get into top US and UK universities. It didn't appeal to me as an individual investment, but my very small investment in Crimson is now, on paper at least, worth enough to cover the losses I made on Light Night. I'm pleased to say that my record in picking individual investments has improved since that first investment. While angel investment demonstrates the economic and social pillars of sustainability, the more critical endeavour is for us to move beyond economic sustainability to environmental sustainability. And Kate Raworth has a further vision of her donut that shows how she believes we are doing globally. It's not a pretty picture. All that red is where we are going badly wrong. And you'll see particularly around the climate. She's also created a similar picture, a similar donut for New Zealand, which again does not paint a pretty picture, though she has kindly for us used green instead of red, where we're getting beyond those planetary boundaries. There are already people in New Zealand and beyond who are considering the impact of our actions on the environment. New Zealand Super Fund has a climate change strategy for its portfolio. Companies around the world are being urged to quantify and minimise their carbon footprint. The Reserve Bank is a member of the Network for Greening the Financial System, and their first comprehensive report is titled A Call for Action, Climate Change as a Source of Financial Risk. I believe that we all recognise the need to take steps towards a more sustainable future. The challenge for all of us is to incorporate both the risks of climate change and the positive steps we can make to address it into our investment strategy. I don't have the answers as to how to do this. However, I can tell you about one initiative I am involved in that seeks to help meet this challenge. For me, the most important hat I wear today is of the chair of New Zealand Green Investment Finance. Like many classes of alternative investment, green investment means different things to different people. For some it is green bonds, debt instruments that meet the global classification criteria for this investment. For me, green investment is investment that has as its purpose addressing the environmental issues we face. It is an alternative investment today because the market is undeveloped and competitive financing for projects that reduce emissions is difficult to find. So what is New Zealand Green Investment Finance? It is a company that has been established by the government, and its mission is to accelerate low emissions investment in New Zealand, to increase investment in projects that reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. New Zealand Green Investment Finance is seeking to act as a catalyst to develop a market for low emissions investment. The government has announced its goal to be net carbon zero by 2050, and New Zealand Green Investment Finance is one of the tools being put in place to help achieve that ambition. Many of you may already understand the issues we face as a country to achieve this goal, but to conceptualise our mission, let me just remind you of our current emissions profile. As you'll see from this slide, the majority of our emissions are in agriculture. However, they are still also in transport, process heat and energy. NZGIF, as we like to call it, has been modelled on the green investment banks overseas, and their experience is instructive but is not entirely applicable to New Zealand. For many of them, the majority of their investments to date have focused on clean energy. With over 80% of our electricity being generated by renewables, the challenge for us is very different. Along with its mission to accelerate low emissions investment, we have 4 objectives. They are to obviously make low emissions investment, but also to crowd in private finance, to do so on a commercial basis, and to play a market leadership role in the area. NZGIF has a key role to play in bringing together providers of capital, investors like many of you in this room, and the people, organisations and companies that need that capital. This role, this co-investing role or crowding in role, is particularly critical because we only have a very small amount of capital, $100 million, a very small amount when you consider the size of the challenge. We have the ability to play different roles in different transactions, with significant flexibilities to suit the deal structure to each investment and to offer different terms from other capital providers. There may be transactions that we can facilitate through providing the patient capital, for example, as mezzanine or subordinated debt. While we have the ability to provide both debt and equity, the majority of our portfolio is likely to be associated with debt structures. It is important to understand both where we fit into the investment landscape and what the sectors are where we are not currently authorised to play. At present, we are focused solely on projects that reduce domestic emissions. We will not be investing in major electricity generation, given the high percentage of our electricity already being generated by renewables, and because power companies already have the size and resources to access finance. We will not be investing in trees or forestry, because that sector is already well covered by the Billion Trees program. At present, we will not be investing in carbon capture and carbon storage, and we will not be investing in central government projects, though we can invest in local government projects. NZGIF is not intended to replace existing government and private investors. The concept of additionality is critical for us. Our role is not to provide finance that others are willing to on terms that meet their requirements. While we will be taking a portfolio approach to our investments, we do not view our role as investing in early stage technology. The government provides capital for that through Callaghan Innovation. Our role is New Zealand focused, but it's not focused solely on technology developed in New Zealand. Our role is to encourage the adoption of the best global technology for New Zealand to meet the challenge of reducing its emissions profile. So where do we expect? What are the areas that we do expect to invest in? Obviously, there is the agricultural sector, which is a major part of our emissions. But given this current state of technology and solutions for the agricultural sector, our expectation is that our initial opportunities will not come from agriculture, and instead they will come from transport, process heat, and the energy efficiency sectors. Our role to convince the finance-first investors and operators that investments in projects that lower our domestic greenhouse gas emissions can suit both, provide a commercial return, and reduce emissions. So how are we going to look to do that? We are in fact going to look to identify the opportunities, connect the sources of capital and the people who have those projects, build programs and projects that we can structure deals for, execute those projects, learn from those projects, monitor and share our success, and be very transparent about what we have done so that we can create a more transparent and larger market, a market where we are leading. So green investment finance is still in its infancy. Our entity actually came into existence on the 12th of April. At present, the board is myself and David Woods, one other director. However, we expect the government to appoint further directors to the board in June. We have a CEO and a small staff and are recruiting for the balance of the senior leadership team and other roles. We are currently developing our investment criteria and our investment strategy. And we are keen to engage with all providers of capital to understand the types of transactions they would be interested in and how they view these types of projects. Green investment is an alternative investment today, but I look forward to the day when the market will be sufficiently developed that financing of green projects will be so well established that, like a number of other alternative asset classes that I have dealt with over the course of my career, it will not be considered an alternative investment. CFA and Kaya have assembled a fantastic day of speakers and panels today discussing a number of alternative investments, and I look forward to learning more about them. And as we all listen and learn, I hope that you will think about them in terms of the economic, social and environmental impact they make and how that impact can be positive for us, for the generations who will follow us, for New Zealand and for the whole world. And I'll leave you with this last image. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. It was a great presentation. Actually, we've got a few questions that come up into stage, so maybe Cecilia, you can come back and answer to a couple of those questions. Thank you, everyone, for using this facility, Pigeonhole. We can see that a few questions have appeared, and you can see this list of questions. You can actually vote. If there are too many questions, you actually can vote on them. And that's it. So one question for you, Cecilia, would be, out of all the sustainable development goals that you presented, which one would be more appropriated to New Zealand companies? And there is another question regarding to those sustainable development goals. Are New Zealand companies doing well in that area?
I think the answer is that we cannot look at the sustainable and development goals and say one or more of these goals are relevant for us. We have to look at all of these goals. There was another interesting presentation I was reading about recently that actually looks at all of these goals and says that they all have an impact on sustainable food. And obviously, we all need food to live and survive. And in fact, every one of these goals is interrelated. So we can't look at these goals and say, which one of these can we choose for New Zealand? I think just as these are the detail around the three key pillars of sustainability of the economy, society, and the environment, so we have to work out a way that all of those connect collaboratively. We have to work them all together for a sustainable future. And unfortunately, I don't think we're doing well as a planet. I think we have to look at what Kate Raworth is doing in terms of the red slide. Can I have the red donut? That makes sense? It's the green one, yeah. So here you see there's quite a lot of, the red is where she's pointing out and saying, this is where we're not doing well on the planet. Now, if we go to the next donut, right, the green one, okay, she's actually giving us, we go to the next donut, the green one, right. Now, she's actually giving us a pass mark on most of the sustainable development goals. However, I think that she's making this presentation to a New Zealand audience. I think she's being nice to us. Because clearly when you look at where we are relative to the planetary boundary in terms of the impact that our actions are having on our environment, it's hard to see how she can give us a pass grade on those sustainable development goals.
Thank you very much. There is one last question that came up, and they're gaining a few votes, a bit controversial, but why has the gift fund yet to set up with only $100 million? It's far behind the much larger, faster $1 billion fund, the Provincial Growth Fund. The climate emergency does not give us the time to be, so any answers for this?
Yeah, we would all like more money. However, we have to start using that money, and certainly the experience around the world has been that the green investment banks only work when they leverage the capital they're given. So I believe that we need to demonstrate that we can leverage that 100 million at least 4 to 1. And once we're able to demonstrate that we can do that, it is possible that we will get more capital. However, we need your assistance to leverage that.